Okay, so let's start part one of this lab by actually bringing up GNS3, naming our project, and then importing our various nodes, dragging and dropping them where they need to be, and then connecting them via the Add a Link tool. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So if you haven't already done so, I would recommend that you take a screenshot of this image so that you can follow along with me here, because I'm going to move this off to my other screen as I work. Okay, so let's go ahead and start GNS3. And we will name this project, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to name it CCNA Switch Lab. And then I'll save it. Okay, so let's start building this up here. According to our topology, we need 3 routers. So let's go ahead and drag and drop those into place. 1, and I'll just use the shift key here to drag and drop 2 more. All right, there we go. Okay, we're also going to need an Ethernet switch node, so that'll be over here in the section on Browse Switches. So there we go, Ethernet switch. Drop that into place. But currently, we don't have the Ether switch router that has the Ether switch module in it, so I need to add that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here under Edit and Preferences. Edit Preferences. And then here under Dynamips, I'll select iOS routers, and then I'll select New. I'll use the same image I'm already using, but this time I'm going to select the Ether switch box. I'm going to give it the appropriate amount of memory, which I think is 256 megabits per second, according to Cisco's Feature Navigator. And I'm not going to populate any of the other slots. I'm just going to leave it with the 16-port Ether switch module, because I don't need to use this thing as a router at all. And then lastly, I want to compute the idle PC value. And this will take about a minute, maybe a little bit less. There we go. We have an idle PC. So let's OK that and finish. Apply, OK. And now we should have available to us our Ether switch router. So let's drag that, hit the Shift key, let go. And yes, I do want 2 of them. All right, let's go ahead and add in our links. So router 1 will use his fast Ethernet, and that's going to end up being our trunk. And we'll connect that to fast Ethernet 1.0 here. Now remember, because these Ether switch routers are routers, they are 3725s, the first 1 or possibly 2 interfaces are actually routed interfaces. They don't do switch port commands or spanning tree commands or anything like that. So for the purposes of this lab, we're going to stay away from those first 2 interfaces. Okay, now let's go over here to router 2. Same thing, connect his fast Ethernet to the first switch port on here. Okay, now let's connect our redundant links up here. So we'll start at the bottom. Fast Ethernet 115. We'll go to Fast Ethernet 115 and Fast Ethernet, let's just say 1.9. We'll go to Fast Ethernet 1.9. All right, so we're almost done. Now, before we start connecting stuff up to the switch, the Ethernet switch, there's a problem. Because if I right-click on this and hit Configure to see what it currently is, all of its interfaces are access ports, and they're all in VLAN 1. And as we talked about when we first introduced this node, you can't change the characteristics of an existing interface. Either have to delete that interface and then recreate it with the characteristics you want, or add a brand new interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all of these. All right, that looks all right. And now remember, according to our diagram here, we needed to have a total of 3 interfaces on that Ethernet switch node. One of them had to be 802.1q, one of them had to be an access port in VLAN 2, and the other one had to be an access port in VLAN 3. So we need to be aware of that as we create these interfaces from scratch. So here we go. I'll have interface 1 be my access port in VLAN 2. I'll have interface 2 be my access port in VLAN 3. And I'll have interface 3 have a native VLAN of 1 and be an 802.1q trunk. Apply. OK. Now before I forget, I should write that on my diagram. So this is interface 1, this is interface 2, and this is interface 3. All right. Now when you do it in your own lab, you can use whatever interface numbers you want, but it is important that you have the .1q trunk and the VLANs where they're supposed to be. All right, so now let's go ahead and connect our interfaces here. So router 3, connect this fast Ethernet port to port 3, which is my trunk. Router 2, connect fast Ethernet 01 to port 1, and connect fast Ethernet 10 to port 2. All right, and that completes our physical connection. Everything is where it needs to be now, so at this point I can minimize that, and I can zoom in a little bit to see a little bit more. Now before I finish this off, let's go ahead and click on the Show Hide Interface Labels so that we know which interfaces are where. And of course they get a little bit sloppy, especially when some of these interfaces are so close to each other. Okay, so and this is why I drew everything on my whiteboard, because I know that 1 is here, 2 is here, that's like that. And now I don't remember which interface on router 2 connected to the switch, but fortunately I can just hover over router 2 and it'll tell me. It says that fast Ethernet 00, let's see here, here we go. Fast Ethernet 01 is connected to port 1. Okay, so fast Ethernet, and let me just hover over that again in case you couldn't see it. You can notice down on the bottom, well, it got rid of that when I entered this tool, but you can see it right there. Come on, come back up. There it is. Fast Ethernet 0/1 is connected to switch 1 on port 1. That's what I need to see. So 0/1 goes up here, 1/0 goes down here. Let's just move his name off to the side a little bit. Okay, and if we go up here, we just know these numbers match on both sides. Okay, and that concludes this section on building the physical topology.